Hi, and in this video we're going to create a new Laravel application that will use JWT token for authorization. So for example, if you want to build a Laravel application that will have an API, and if you want to make authorization inside this API, you can use JWT tokens. So first of all, let's create a new Laravel application. I'm going to do this with using composer command. So composer creates a project. Now I need to select Laravel framework, so I type here Laravel package and after that name of my application, and it will be JWT Laravel. Okay, so now let's wait until new application will be successfully generated, and after that we're going to open this project inside Visual Studio Code, and also I'm going to show you the official documentation of jwt-auth library that we are going to use in this tutorial. So as you can see, all dependencies are installing. So let's wait until this stuff will be installed, but we already can open JWT-auth official documentation, so I'm gonna hide my terminal. So as you can see, this is official documentation of the package that we are going to use to create JWT tokens in our application. So let's click on next, and as you can see here we have composer dependencies that we will need to install for this JWT library. So let's wait until last packages will be installed. Okay, so as you can see, process of installation is finished, and this means that now we can go to JWT Laravel. So I'm going to clear this, and now I'm going to install this dependencies of composer required Timon JWT-auth. As I said, we will use this dependency to create a JWT tokens in our application, I mean. Okay, as you can see, this dependency is successfully installed. So this means that now we can open our project in Visual Studio Code. So let's do this, and let me also show you a screen of Visual Studio Code. I will need to open a new window here, so let me show you this window. Okay, so now we can see this project folder, and in this tutorial I will use not MySQL connection but SQLite. And the reason why I'm going to use SQLite, because we don't building some special application, so I want to have my database of the app in one file. So let's clear all this stuff, and also we will need to create a new file inside database folder. So as I remember, we will need to create a database.sqlite file in this folder. So let's create this file, and that will be a file of our database. So we can say that we successfully did connection with our local database, and now let's get back to the official documentation of JWT-auth. So now we will need to add service provider of JWT-auth. So let's copy this line of code, and let's go to config folder and open app.php file. So let's go here, app.php, let's find providers here. So as you can see, there is providers, and now we need to type this line and save it. Now let's open documentation again to check that we did all steps. So as you can see, now we need to create a publish config of this dependency. So let's create a new terminal here. Okay, and now paste this command, and as you can see, now we have config file for JWT-auth. This is jwt.php, and here we can type JWT secret or change JWT secret manually, but as you can see, JWT secret will be generated inside .env file, and there is many things that we can configure. For example, when token will be expired, or for example keys if we want this. So now let's generate secret key, and to do this we will need to copy this command and type this in our terminal. So paste php artisan JWT secret. So as you can see, JWT secret successfully generated. And now let me tell you, if you don't know what is JWT secret. So what is JWT? When you're using JWT, you will generate for every user a new access token. By using this access token, user will be able to use our API and authorize inside the API. Also, by default, this access token expires after 5 minutes, and to generate a new access token, user will be use refresh token. So you need to remember that we have two tokens. This is access token, and so access token to access to our API, and refresh token to get a new access token. And if I remember, this refresh token expires after 1 day or something like this, but you can also configure when these tokens can be expired. Okay, and why we need to use JWT secret here? It will use it automatically, so this JWT secret key will be used to encrypt these tokens. Okay, so now let's get back again to documentation, and now it's time to start using this great tool. So as you can see, there is also Lumen installation, but we don't need Lumen, so let's go to quick start. And first of all, we will need to update user model. We will need to implement here JWT subject, and somebody can ask me, whoa, why do we need to implement here some interface that is named JWT subject? And the reason is simple, because by using this JWT subject interface, we will be able to create access and refresh token for user and also validate this information with user credentials. So first, before we gonna do this, I want also to migrate my database. So let's try to use PHP artisan migrate command. As you can see, this is working successfully. So that means that now we can go to user model. So first let's close these two folders and let's go to app models user.php, and now we will need to copy some code from the official documentation of JWT token. So first of all, let's copy this line and open again this. Okay, so use JWT subject, and now let's type that we want to use this interface, so implements JWT subject. Okay, and also we will need to copy a few functions here, so let's copy this, and as you can see, this function will be used to get key for JWT. Okay, so let's go here, scroll down, and let's paste these two functions here. So these functions will be used to create access and refresh tokens for user, but it's not correct. We can say that these functions helps for our user model to generate access and refresh token. Okay, so now let's open documentation again, and now we need to configure out GURT. So we will need to say for our authorization configurations that we want also to use in our application JWT tokens. So to do that, we will need to open GURT's API and use driver JWT for API only. So let's go to authorization configuration. So this is auth.php file, and as you can see, we have GURT's web. So let's get back to documentation because I don't remember. So defaults, so let's find defaults element here. So defaults. Okay, so as you can see, defaults, this is GURT web, so we will use API because in this tutorial, because JWT tokens are used only in API for authorization. And now we need to go to GURT. Let's copy this lines of code and find GURT's element. So type here GURT. Okay, here we go. Oh, nice. So now we will use GURT for API because we will make only authorization in our application by using JWT tokens, and we said for our configuration of authorization in our app that we will use JWT. Okay, so now let's open again documentation because we need to do all these steps, and as you can see, we can use here some roads. So there is nice example. So we don't need to write some code from zero. We can just copy all the stuff from the documentation. So first let's copy this lines and open roads API.php file. If you don't know what is roads API.php file, this file is used to create roads only for API of your application. So let's save it. Oh, I don't like this style. I don't like when somebody use this style for calling some controller. I prefer to use, something like array, and first type here out controller class, and after that call functions that I want to use. But let's use the style that we have in the official documentation. So let's save it. And now we will need to generate this new controller. So let's check in the official documentation that no, this is not resource control, so we can just copy this command again. Okay, so now let's, as I said, let's generate this new controller. So pass this command PHP controller, out controller successfully generated. And now let's open this controller, and all code for this controller we can also copy from the official documentation, and this is really great. So let me also tell you about this route that we copied from here. So first, this is login route, and this route will be used to get a new access token and refresh token for user by using user credentials, and it will be email and password. This is logout. This is when user wants to log out from our application by a API, and this will destroy access and refresh token. And refresh route will be used to get a new access token by using refresh tokens that we'll get from login route. And this route will be used to get information about current user. So let's go here, and as you can see, we don't need to write any code. We can just copy all this stuff. So let's copy all these functions and let's check how this works. So let's go to out controller. Let's paste it here. So first let's go to construct. As you can see here, by default we are using API middleware, and that will check in API parts that we are authorized or not. Now, as you can see, there is login, and what this login function do, as you can see, first we're using here credentials. As I said, we will use only here email and passport, and if this is not successful, we will send error to user that this is not correct credentials. But if credentials are correct, user will get access and refresh token, and by using access token, the user will get access to our API functions. Okay, and as you can see, as I said, me function do return information about current user, and logout destroys access and refresh token of current user. Refresh function creates a new refresh and access token. And as you can see, response with token, this function was called here and here, and this function is used to create a new access token and also refresh token. But as you can see, refresh token we get here from out refresh. So response with token returns only access token. By default, refresh token is saved in database. So now let's test all this stuff. And yeah, also you can see when this token will be expired, token type, and also I will tell you how this works in authorization headers. Okay, so let's get back to documentation to see that we did all steps successfully. And as you can see, you should now able to post login. So now we can test all these things. So I will open my Postman to test all these functions. Also, I will start local server of the application, and to do that, I will type here PHP artisan serve. Okay, let's copy this, and first, oh, I forget to create a new user in my database. So let's go to database seeder, and let's create here by default a new user that will have test example email, and by default, Laravel will generate here passwords that will be equal to password. Okay, so now let's type here PHP artisan migrate fresh sit, and as you can see, this again created all tables in our database and also created this test user. Okay, so now let's start local server of the application. So let's type here PHP artisan serve, and now let me open Postman and create here a new request. So let me show you Postman. Also, if you don't know what is Postman, this is really great tool if you want to test some API functions or something like this. So as you can see, I already opened my Postman, and first we will check login. So we created login route in API, and here let's go to body, let's go to row, let's select that we want to send some JSON data. Also, we can add here some headers like accept application JSON and content type. Also type here content type. Also type here application JSON. Okay, and now let's type here my test email. So it was testexample.com, and my password that was generated by Laravel. By default, it will be just password. So now let's send this request. And as you can see, the route API called not be found. Okay, so we have some troubles with our API. So I think we can just try now, maybe login, and this also not works. Okay, so we have some problem with API.php file. So let's fix it. So let's go to API group here, and as you can see, we have login. Okay, middleware API prefix out. Okay, so I forget to add prefix. Everything works, but I forget only to add prefix. So let's get back to Postman and let's add this prefix here. So it will be API out login. Now let's send this request, and as you can see, out controller doesn't exist. So I forget to include this controller inside this API.php file. So first let's type here use app http controllers out controller, and let's save it. Let's open again Postman, and let's try to make this request again. So now when I will send this request, I will get access token and refresh token for this user. So let's send it. And this says again that out controller doesn't exist. Whoa, what's wrong? Let's open again. Okay, so let's check app http controllers out controller, and this is also controllers. Maybe I forget something here. Okay, out controller. Yeah, maybe we can first, let's try to use here this style to call login function or other functions of this controller. Let's save it and let's try again. So let's open Postman and let's send this request again. That now, as you can see, I successfully get a new access token. And how I can now use this access token? For example, imagine that I want to get information of current user, and if I want to get information about current user, I must be authorized in my application. So first you need to save this token inside header. So when user will make again and again some requests to your application, to some endpoints where user must be authorized, inside headers, you will need to have authorization, and you will need to have BRR token. And this access token is already BRR. So first you type here BRR, and after that type here this token. But before we gonna perform some requests, let's get back to API.php, because we already have here some middlewares that already need some authorization, but this is by using Sanctum. So here we can just change this to out, maybe. Yeah, so maybe out middleware, and let's save it. And now when I will try to access API/user endpoint, I will get information about current user. So let's check that this is working. So let's open Postman and let's try to perform this request. So first let's type here HTTP, okay, so API and user, and as you can see I already added here authorization. And now let's send this, and as you can see now this request successfully working. But what if I will try to access this endpoint, this route, without authorization? As you can see, I got here some error. We can preview it. So as you can see, route is not defined. This tries me to redirect to login page. So now if I again try to use authorization with my access token and send it, as you can see, I will get information about current user. So that means that we are successfully authorized in our application. So there is really simple logic. First you get access token by using your credentials and out controller, and after that you use this access token in headers like a BRR token. So you will need to add this header with authorization, and you will and this will validate your user in some routes where user must be authorized. Also, maybe somebody can ask me, whoa, but what if I want to what if I want to get a new access token, because this token will be expire and there is nothing hard. So first you will need to make a new post request, and this post request will go to auth refresh. So as you remember, we already created also this refresh route inside auth controller. So we copied just this from official documentation, and here we will also need to add authorization, and you will need to type here BRR and type here send. And as you can see, we get some error. Oh, as you remember, I fixed it in api.php because we need to use to call this function by this way that I used in login road. So I will use here refresh function. Let's save it and let's try to perform this request again. Okay, so let's click send again, and as you can see, now I get a new refresh token. If I try now to again click, now as you can see I get error. And why, you will ask me why? Because I forget to copy this access token that I already created, and this is old access token that is old, and this token is expired and deleted from our database. So that's how you can use JWT, how you can install it. Maybe it was a bit long tutorial, but as you can see, by using JWT, it's really simple to make authorization inside your application. So for example, imagine that you have Laravel applications that you use like API, and also you have some client applications that was maybe written on React. And if you want to make authorization by using your API, you will need to use JWT token. And this access token and refresh token will be saved on client side, and front-end developer will need to build just a logic to make request to your API, access to API routes to login and to create a new access tokens. And that's how this works. So as I said, it was a little bit long video, so thanks for watching, and soon I'm gonna post more tutorials.